Hey students, welcome to May 22nd. Today we're going to go through Proverbs 22, so let's go ahead and get started. Choose a good reputation over great riches. Being held in high esteem is better than silver or gold. The rich and poor have this in common, the Lord made them both. A prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. True humility and fear of the Lord lead to riches, honor, and long life. Corrupt people walk a thorny, treacherous road. Whoever values life will avoid it. Direct your children onto the right path, and when they are older, they will not leave it. Just as the rich rule the poor, so the borrower is servant to the lender. Those who plant injustice will harvest disaster, and their reign of terror will come to an end. Blessed are those who are generous because they feed the poor. Throw out the mocker, and fighting goes too. Quarrels and insults will disappear. Whoever loves a pure heart and gracious speech will have the king as a friend. The Lord preserves those with knowledge, but he ruins the plans of the treacherous. The lazy person claims, "There's a lion out there. If I go outside, I might be killed." The mouth of an immoral woman is a dangerous trap. Those who make the Lord angry will fall into it. A youngster's heart is filled with foolishness, but physical discipline will drive it far away. A person who gets ahead by oppressing the poor or by showering gifts on the rich will end in poverty. Listen to the words of the wise. Apply your heart to my instruction. For it is good to keep these sayings in your heart and always ready on your lips. I am teaching you today, yes, you, so you will trust in the Lord. I have written 30 sayings for you, filled with advice and knowledge. In this way you may know the truth and take an accurate report to those who sent you. Don't rob the poor just because you can, or exploit the needy in court, for the Lord is their defender. He will ruin anyone who ruins them. Don't befriend angry people or associate with hot-tempered people, or you will learn to be like them and endanger your soul. Don't agree to guarantee another person's debt or put up security for someone else. If you can't pay it, even your bed will be snatched from under you. Don't cheat your neighbor by moving the ancient boundary markers set up by previous generations. Do you see any truly competent workers? They will serve kings rather than working for ordinary people. So, going back up to verse 2, it says, "The rich and poor have this in common, the Lord made them both." I know as students, I've struggled with this before. A lot of times we tend to get caught up in having the nicest things, or whether or not we have the nicest house or the newest AirPods or whatever it is. But in all reality, it doesn't matter. Those are only worldly possessions. And like it says here, you were still made by the Lord. You're still a child of God, and you are still loved by God, no matter how much money your family may have. The verse that stuck out to me is verse 3. It says, "A prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences." So a prudent person is going to be somebody who acts carefully. They think before they say anything or do anything, while the simpleton is going to be the foolish person who acts based on emotions. And as followers of God, we are called to be a prudent person. We are called to think before we speak, and think, is what you're doing or saying pleasing to God? We want to see the danger ahead, and we want to go the other direction. We don't want to continue and then suffer the consequences later, because nobody likes consequences anyways. Moving down to verse 11, "Whoever loves a pure heart and gracious speech will have the king as a friend." A pure heart is something that's talked about several times. It's going to be someone who is seeking and longing for nothing but God. And that's constantly following him, constantly seeking what he's trying to teach us, constantly reading through his word. And that's a decision that we have to make on the inside. And typically, if you have a pure heart, that leads to the gracious speech that it talks about, or kind speech, where you're spreading the love of God, you're praying for others, you're having gracious speech. And you can't have just one or the other. You can't have a pure heart and not have gracious speech, because the inside and the outside both matter. And if you have both of those, it leads to having God as a friend. And in Exodus 33, it talks about Moses and how he was a friend of the Lord's. And it says, "The Lord spoke with Moses face to face, just as a man speaks with a friend." In this instance, the Hebrew word for this is Rhea, and Rhea means companion or intimate. And we get to have an intimate relationship with the Lord. That is something so special, and it means that he's never going to leave us alone. He's never going to forsake us. He will always be right there with us. We get to have that relationship with him. Moving down to verse verse 15, a youngster's heart is filled with foolishness, but physical discipline will drive it far away. So this reminds me of 5th grade. We had agendas that we had to take home, and our parents had to sign them, signifying that they had read them. Well, me, being the forgetful person that I am, I forgot to have my mom sign it, and so I was like, okay, I'll just sign it for her, and I forged her signature. Well, a couple days later, my mom was going through my agenda, and she realized that that was not her handwriting. That was because that was my 5th grade handwriting, which was completely terrible, to be totally honest. And so she took me to the school. She sat me in front of my teacher, and she made me tell her what I did and apologize for lying to her. That was embarrassing, and I never, ever, ever did that again. As children, we are not born with the ability to discern right from wrong, and it is only with teaching and correction, even though we don't like it, that we're able to learn and grow and do better. Going to verse 17 and 18, listen to the words of the wise, apply your heart to my instruction, for it is good to keep these things in your heart and always ready on your lips. As we talked about yesterday, it is so important to be prepared. Listening to the words of people that are wiser than you, listening to what the Bible has to tell you, and then applying it to your heart so that way you are ready and it is always ready on your lips. If that friend comes to you and they ask, hey, what's God all about? You are ready and you have that wisdom to share with them. Verse 24, don't befriend angry people or associate with hot-tempered people, or you will learn to be like them and endanger your soul. Whether you think that it will or not, the people that you are around, they will eventually affect you. It may take time, but it will come, and it is so important to be around the right people. In Ezekiel 18, it talks about, behold, all souls are mine, the soul of the Father as well as the soul of the Son. The soul who sins shall die. If we are around the wrong people, it endangers our soul, and that's a bad spot to be in. Clearly, our soul is so important, and it needs to be protected. So when we are around the wrong people, we endanger that soul, and that's foolish. That's something that we can't be okay with. If you are in that relationship or you are friends with that person that it causes you to endanger your soul or become foolish, then you need to get out. You need to get rid of them, and it's going to hurt and it's going to be hard, but it is so important, and it will be better for you in the long run. So thank you for joining us today. Josh will be back tomorrow for Proverbs 23, and we'll see you guys later.